Hey everybody, this is Jesse Weber, Law News Network. We are taking a sidebar right now in the Adam Matos case. You were just watching the testimony of Susan Miller, a forensic investigator, and authenticating different photographs of items and different views of the house in this case. She authenticated some different items. The west side of the garage was of particular interest. There was different items that had blood on them. So let's talk a little bit about what was found today. We're here with Law News trial analyst Deborah Blum. Deborah, thanks for joining us as always.
I'm so happy to be here.
Let's talk about some of the items. We saw that there was a mattress that had blood on it. We saw that there was DVDs in bags and plastic drawers and garbage bags. We saw that there was a whole plastic container, a storage bin that had blood on it. There were boxes that were stacked together that had blood on it. Doesn't really sound like somebody who tried to clean up a crime scene.
Well, maybe he was attempting to, he or she, whoever's responsible for this, was attempting to, but they did a really bad job. You know, the defense here is leaving us with a cliffhanger. We don't know what they're going to do. They're not doing very much as of yet. They didn't open, as we talked about earlier. They haven't done very much cross-examination. So I'm very curious what they're going to do. They could come in and they could present an alternative theory. They could say, look, just because you heard about all these items, that there was a mattress with blood on it, DVDs and bags, plastic containers, plastic bags, that doesn't mean that our client is responsible for this. We were speaking during the testimony off air with Aaron Keller, who shed a lot of light on this matter. Both the female victim and the male victim had other lovers who could have possibly been responsible, who were a bit crazed, who were obsessed with them. They perhaps could be responsible for these gruesome murders. I think that the biggest question would then be, why didn't Matos call the police? Why didn't he do anything further to say, look, my girlfriend is missing? We know that he stopped calling her phone after the death. So I think that's a really big hurdle for the defense, but I'd really like to see what they're going to do. You know, we don't know that there's any DNA. Just because there was blood doesn't mean there's DNA evidence. We know that they're dead. So these aren't things that are particularly damaging to the defense. It's just, I'm very curious to see what they're going to do.
At this point in the trial, we talked about it, it would have been a better situation maybe for Mr. Matos if in fact he was responsible for these crimes. To have, he is being prosecuted right now for everything he did after August 28th. If he committed those crimes, calling the police and saying something along the lines of, oh, I just stumbled upon this crime scene, because again, we're still not unclear about all the actual physical DNA evidence attaching him specifically to this crime. We're more hearing about what his activities were by living in that house.
Right. Oh, oops, I stumbled upon the crime scene and then I used my mother-in-law's, not that they were married,
right,
but, you know, the mother of my child's mother's ATM card.
Yeah. Deborah, I'm sorry, let's hold on one second. I think we have some activity in the courtroom.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you that the next witness is going to take close to 2 hours. So I was going to let you take a potty break and come back, but I think I'll just let you go to lunch earlier, because then it'll flow a little easier. So I'm going to lunch early, only because if we don't, we won't go to lunch till 1. So, and I know you all have been here since 9:30. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and break now for lunch, have you back down in the jury pool room at 12:15. And I'll remind you again, no talking, tweeting, texting, or blogging. And we'll see you at 12:15, okay?
Welcome back to Law News Network, everybody. This is Jesse Weber. They are going in a lunch break in the Adam Matos case out of Florida. I want to talk a little bit about what we've seen so far and what to expect in this case. Here with me right now, joining me, is Law Newz's own trial analyst, Deborah Blum. Deborah, we were talking a little bit in the break. I do have to ask you the most important question of the day. Baby in the courtroom. Yes or no?
I really don't understand why people bring their children to court. I mean, first of all, the number of germs that are there, I wouldn't want to subject a child to that, but, you know, I understand sometimes people don't have child care options, I just really don't think this is an appropriate place for a child. Typically in New York State, what will happen when you bring a child to a courtroom is you're going to be directed to bring your child to a child care within the courthouse. So it is a little bit bizarre that there's a crying baby during a quadruple homicide
I had to bring
case.
it up. I had to bring it up. Many people are talking about it. Let's talk a little bit about what we were talking about in the break. The idea that Mr. Matos, is being prosecuted right now for everything that he did after that August 28th date. If you take everything from the 120 phone calls that he made on August 27th to the afternoon of August 28th, and then those calls stopping from him living in that house, ordering pizza, trying to clean things up, if he did commit this crime, wouldn't his best defense have been to call the police right after the murder and say, I just stumbled upon this crime scene? But it seems like everything right now is after the fact.
Well, whoever committed this crime, it certainly wasn't a perfect murder. Yes, absolutely. And he should have continued to call the mother of his child and say, where are you? And he should have called the police and said, I just stumbled upon this crime scene, or he should have concocted some story if he's the one that did it, such as my father, my girlfriend's father is acted crazy, and I had to act in self-defense, and he put a plastic bag over his wife's head. He could have done a number of things that he didn't do. And, I do have to say, though, this isn't only about after the murder. We do have that 911 call where, I think that's pretty damaging. We
talked about it. It's rare to have a victim identify the defendant as a possible attacker. We saw this very much in the Jessica Chambers case. What was she trying to say as who did this to her? But here, it's a little bit different. We have on the morning of August 28th, the morning that we believe the same day when all these 4 people were killed, her calling 911 to say that Mr. Matos threatened her with a knife. And we talked about it earlier. Just reiterate for our viewers how damaging that might be for a victim to point at the finger at the defendant.
Well, I think that's incredibly, incredibly damaging. Megan Brown called. We know that she said Adam Matos was trying to kill her. We also have the fact that Megan Brown told coworkers that she was afraid for her life, that she was afraid that he was going to take their child in common. So a lot of those things are very damaging, and I believe they're going to come in at this trial, and maybe they're even going to come in today or tomorrow.
I think I'm really anticipating the testimony of Ryan McCann, this neighbor. Now, what you have here is somebody who was there. He was in that area. He lived right, next to the Browns' house, and he was somebody who smelled the decomposition. He went out with the defendant in the days after August 28th, where we know that from deposition reports that apparently Mr. Matos was getting in people's faces at the bar and was causing a bit of a disruption. He was getting drunk. We know that somebody that was with Mr. McCann asked Mr. Matos, he said, oh man, it smells like someone died, and Matos gave him a death stare almost. So, it's these kinds of facts that I think the jury is really going to anticipate when you hear this testimony of somebody that was around this area at this time.
Aaron Keller wrote a really, really helpful piece about this. He gives us a timeline. He put this up to the website November 6th, and it really takes us through what happened here. And this neighbor is a crucial witness. He's going to say that he smelt the decomposition. He saw the defendant sweaty and looking like he was doing something wrong, or whatever the state that the defendant was in, it was abnormal. He asked for a ratchet. They went out and they had beers together. It just really doesn't speak or bode well to the defendant, because even if he didn't commit these murders, wouldn't he be worried about where the mother is?
Well, it's funny, Matos did tell McCann that the Brown family had flown to West Virginia to take a vacation, which again, it doesn't make sense, because as we know, Mr. Matos called Megan 120 times, and then he never called her again, never contacted her again at a certain point in the afternoon of August 28th. So again, if they went away, what's going on here?
Right, and she would have called him, because I'm sure that she would have wanted to speak with their child. I think that the prosecution is going to do a great job establishing the fact that she was a very excellent mother. There are some things that the defense could poke holes about, such as the fact that she had a boyfriend, and then she was on a break with the boyfriend and conceived the child with Adam Matos, and then the boyfriend came back into the picture and there were some other men possibly. So I would try to point a finger at those other men to say, no, they were the ones that are responsible, but then the defense does have this hurdle of explaining this bizarre behavior from Matos, who stayed in a home with the smell of decomposing bodies.
I know we have to let you go soon, but I do have a question to ask about this. We talked about this in the break. The idea that a good defense for Mr. Matos would have been the insanity defense, and I want to talk about this because if you take what the prosecution says at face value, here's a guy who was ordering pizza, hanging out at the house, going out, playing pool, act as if nothing happened. Don't you see that kind of behavior in somebody who can't conform their actions to the law, don't realize what they did was wrong? Insane behavior in a way, behavior that would match the insanity defense. So what do you think is going on here? The defense didn't want to go to that route. I
don't think that they even broach that subject. I mean, a lot of times at trial, the insanity defense is not going to be successful. Jurors just aren't going to. They can understand and appreciate the fact that this person has a mental illness, but they're not going to excuse their actions here, a quadruple homicide, due to their mental illness. People have all kinds of conditions that they have to struggle with, and we can speak about this forever. With a mental illness, people that have severe ones often don't treat their mental illness until after they commit an atrocious crime, and then they learn about this illness they've been battling with their whole life, and then they become medicated, and it's like a whole different person. So that didn't happen here. It's very rare that the defense is going to win with an insanity defense. I actually am handling a matter right now where if it does go to trial, it will absolutely be the defense, but it's very intricate. You have to have doctors who are willing and social workers and,
But you could have something like this where it comes into his mental state of mind. If he is convicted and it then goes into the penalty phase, with the death penalty phase, you would try to throw in some sort of information that this guy had didn't see the world as everyone else did and had a different impulse control. You kind of see the evidence of that going in, right?
Absolutely. That would be in the mitigating
factors. We saw that in
factors.
Luis Toledo, that's
right. In Slender Man, which we covered here, that it was a successful insanity defense, but it is very rare. And, this person is sitting here, he's sitting and behaving, and I don't think that that is a possibility here. We would have seen it in the court files that an insanity notice was filed. It's just not how they're going.
And it looks like they're going to either try to point the finger at somebody else or just keep attacking the witnesses or the evidence that was presented, and basically the collection methods and any DNA tests, anything like that. Keep trying to attack the evidence in the testimony.
But it doesn't really seem like they're doing attacking yet.
Not yet, but it's still early in the case, We'll have to see what happens after lunch. So Deborah Blum, thank you so much for joining us, and we can't wait to have you back on to talk about this case and other cases on the LawNewz Network.
See you soon.
See you soon. Thank you. Okay, so as we were talking about, they are in a lunch break right now in the Adam Matos